Hello, 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 everybody. Hi there. All right, so thank you guys so much for being here today. It's been a long time since I've gone live, so thank you guys so much. For those of you who are joining for the very first time, hi, I'm Kwana, and welcome to Her Real Review. And you see the title right there. I really wanted to talk about Disney live action and The Little Mermaid. Some of you may be here from my reaction to the Color Purple trailer. And of course, probably from that, you figured out that I was really excited to see Halle Bailey in another production. And she's, of course, going to be starring as Ariel in The Little Mermaid. And that has not been without a whole lot of uproar. And so, just in this conversation around preparing to see that film, I was like, let's just sit here and have a little bit of a retrospective on Disney live action, because some people are excited for The Little Mermaid. Some people are not so excited for The Little Mermaid, and they're really upset about the casting of the film. And then some people just are displaying Disney burnout, Marvel burnout. And so that might be a thing that you are dealing with and you're not excited. And I thought I wanted to anchor this discussion in kind of a retrospective on Disney live action, not regular Disney live action, like Remember the Titans, but Disney live action remakes of their animated films and animated properties. So we're just going to get right into it, and definitely let me know what your favorite Disney animated film is in the comments. Let me know what your favorite Disney animated film is. My favorite of all of the Disney animated films is a toss up between The Little Mermaid and Tangled. I do like Princess and the Frog, although just for the representation, we got to give Tiana her respect. But if we're going to be honest, Tiana was a frog for most of that movie, and the movie's plot is not without some flaws in terms of Princess Game. Um, Tangled has a absolutely banging soundtrack. I can listen to Tangled from end to end, and The Little Mermaid for me is OG. I was 8 when The Little Mermaid came out, so I remember going up to my friend Amber's house after school, and we would watch The Little Mermaid on VHS on repeat. So definitely let me know what your favorite Disney animated film is. But let's just talk about some of these live action remakes. So first, we got to go ahead and just establish the fact that despite all of the complaining online, Disney is not going to stop making these live action remakes, because they bring in money. They bring in bank, big time bank. And of course, animation does as well, but animation is oftentimes a much lengthier process than just a regular live action. I mean, with a live action, yeah, you got to do script and all that kind of stuff. But once you get your cast and you're ready, you can go from conception to release in a 2-year time span. Very rarely does that happen with animation, unless you're talking about like CGI type stuff. Unless you're talking about CGI animation, even that takes a long time, because animation is a lengthy process. So they're going to keep making it. I think we just all have to go ahead and come to grips with it. But I was thinking that 101 Dalmatians was the first of the animated remakes. And I completely forgot in my research for this, the 1994, the Jungle Book, starring Jason Scott Lee. And I swear I feel like half of the cast of Game of Thrones was in that movie. I don't remember seeing it, but when I look back, I remembered like vaguely seeing it. So I definitely need to go back and watch it again. But it made like triple its budget at least, and that's kind of my qualifier for whether it was a favorable box office, is it really needs to be at least double, but really for Disney standards, like triple its production cost. And it did that and also had a whole lot of acclaim. I think I probably saw it back in 94 and then just kind of blocked it out because The Jungle Book was never really one of my favorites. But it's also not quite as faithful to the animation, like with the music and things. It's more of like faithful to the book and to the story, but not, doesn't have like the music. So it's not like a 1-for-1. 101 Dalmatians was more of like a 1-for-1, the same. And Glenn Close did the thing. She got nominated for a ton of awards. It made crazy bank. She even got, I think, an Academy Award nomination for it. So definitely, if you remember growing up and seeing 101 Dalmatians, you know that that was a good film. And then they just did sequels for a little while, sequels to things. And so there wasn't really anything original. So this is like my tier one, like the OGs. They didn't make any more remakes until Alice in Wonderland. And, you know, I don't know about you. Let me know in the comments. I don't really consider Alice in Wonderland a remake. And I don't know if you consider a remake. I don't really consider it a remake because when I think of the remakes, I'm thinking of what is more faithful to the animation. And we know that that was just a completely different film. Breathtaking. And we can talk about Tim Burton and his ethics and lack of diversity another time. But the film was breathtaking. The use of 3D was awesome. The story was decent, but this is around the time when like taking these stories and kind of like flipping it and doing something different became kind of trend, because not a Disney property, but you had the Sci-Fi channels doing their rendition of the Wizard of Oz after that, called The Tin Man, which was really good. It was really popular for cable, and so it did well. But these are the OGs. All right, so then next we get the second round. Now, I don't know if y'all remember this. Nicolas Cage starred in a remake of The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Again, it's technically classified as a remake. I don't think I would classify it as a remake because it's very Matrixy. It's not, it's taking The Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia, which was just, you know, Mickey and the broomsticks and Yen Sid and the flooding of the buckets and all that kind of stuff. They did something completely different when it came to Sorcerer's Apprentice. It wasn't a remake in that way, but it technically is, and it did not do well. No $ for that one. And then we got to, then we have Maleficent, Crazy Bank. Again, not a 1-for-1. It's not Sleeping Beauty, Story of Aurora, Boring Princess. I'm sorry, y'all. If you like, if the Sleeping Beauty is your favorite Disney animated film, I'm so sorry, but Aurora is just not very engaging. The best thing about that movie is the 3 fairies having their fairy battle over the color of her dress and making her birthday cake, and Maleficent. Those are the best things, and the dragon sequence at the end. But this is where we start getting Disney taking their villains and giving us a villain backstory for them. And so we know that this made a lot of money and it had a lot of acclaim. And for the most part, most people enjoyed this film. I think a lot of people enjoyed the sequel better, but you know, and it's Angelina Jolie. You can't go wrong with that. But again, it's still not exactly a 1-for-1 remake. But then we get Cinderella. So Cinderella, Lily James. Was the dress as good as Cinderella's dress? Maybe not for the nostalgic, but it was a good movie. Box office smash. For as much as people talk about maybe not really this one not being memorable. Now, let me pause and say this, and y'all have to let me know if y'all seen this. Please let me know in the comments if you have seen the 1997 Cinderella, Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella with Brandy, Whoopi Goldberg. That is my Cinderella, okay? Because I was like 15 at the time. So Brandy was my Cinderella. But I also saw the original Rodgers and Hammerstein film adaptation of Cinderella, which I think was filmed in like 66 or something like that. I might be wrong about the date on that. My friend Janine would be like, why do you know this stuff? I just know this stuff. But I love the music from that. That's not Disney's Cinderella. That's its own thing. But Disney did buy that property and they made their own, and the remake was phenomenal. And please let me know in the comments that I'm not crazy, because there was no social media back in those days. So we really don't know, but I just don't remember there being backlashes about Brandy playing Cinderella, right? Like, there's no backlash against Brandy. Brandy at the time was the TV princess darling. White or black, everybody knew who Brandy was. Everybody liked her. And then I didn't even mention Whitney Houston as the fairy godmother, right? So like, nobody was going around like really dogging that production out. It was one of the highest, I think it was the most viewed television event that year. Why do I know this stuff? Google is my friend, you know, like the Google over here. So I saw this version, the Lily James version of Cinderella, and it was good. She's good in it, and it does do some new things. Again, there's a bigger conversation to be had about these Disney princesses and the idea that the princesses are waiting for the prince to save them. I think that kind of gets conflated a little bit, because when you think about the OG Cinderella, she certainly wasn't waiting for the prince. Like, she sat there, she, you know, tried to make her own dress. The mice, Gus and them, sewed her a dress, right? So she wasn't necessarily waiting for somebody to save her per se. It's just every time she tried to lift herself up, somebody came along and like knocked her back down. And eventually the prince does save her, but she's not like as weak. But now in the 2000s, what they're trying to do is up their game, right? They want to up their game. They want to really drive home the idea that women don't have to wait for men to save them. And so with these new renditions, even though it's a 1-for-1 of the animation and the scenes are the same and all of that, it's like, we can't, like, I don't think we can hate on it, but let me know. You can, maybe you think we can. I don't think we can hate on it, because it is bringing a new theme and doing something slightly different with the animation, at least in terms of Cinderella. All right, so we see where this is going. Then we get to the Jungle Book. Now, this Jungle Book, I don't know what happened between the Jungle Book and when we get to the Lion King, because there's some differences between the two. They learned some stuff, but some stuff they did not get right, because the Jungle Book was actually really good. It was stunning. Maybe because we weren't in this stage where people feel like they're having Disney fatigue, they were able to appreciate it more. It got so much acclaim. It made so much money. It had an all-star voice acting cast. But I will say, in my opinion, I think what helped was that although there were big names attached to the Jungle Book, there weren't any mega stars. And there were people who had been like, quote unquote, trained actors. So no one was upset that Idris Elba or I think Scarlett Johansson does a voice in there. No, but no one was just upset about the voice acting. And again, it made crazy amounts of money compared to the budget. It did well. Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is probably top 5 Disney animation for me. Gorgeous gowns. Belle is a book nerd. I am a book nerd. So Belle is my girl. Belle is like me, okay? But there were problems. One, they casted Emma Watson. I love Emma Watson. Emma Watson is Hermione. And I think the thought was she's already played a bookish character. Let's cast her as Belle and kind of continue that and it'll work. And I just think that only making her bookish is Hermione and Belle are different because Hermione is book smart and not really idealistic. She's very grounded and very practical. And Belle is very idealistic and she's a dreamer, right? That's like the whole thing about the first song she sings is she's like dreaming of faraway places in the books she reads. So I think they needed to cast somebody who kind of had that like je ne sais quoi about them, where they kind of seem like they have like an active imagination and they're fantasizing about life that way, because that's what made Belle special when she got there, even though she was scared at first about like furniture and whatnot walking around. Like she was like, okay, this is like being in one of my dream sequences. Like this is cool. I could like she wasn't startled by it. She very much adapted to it right away. I just think the life wasn't there, but the dollars don't lie. The dollars followed the movie, and again, it broke the box office. It was like the 7th highest grossing film, or at least one of the top 10 grossing films for that year. So they're not going to stop with that. They're not going to stop with that, right? And then we get to Dumbo. Dumbo, in my opinion, is Disney attempting to keep a property, because once certain properties age out, they go back into the commons and anyone can get them unless you can maintain the property. And so, one, it's Disney keep maintaining ownership of Dumbo by doing this, and two, it's Disney righting the wrongs of the past. I don't know if that was the initial, because let's be honest, Disney is a big corporation, so they're gonna always follow the money. But somebody in the room said we should do Dumbo because we had some racist stuff in Dumbo. They were wilding back in the day when they made Dumbo with those Jim Crows that were supposed to be stereotyping Black people. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Like, it was some stuff in Dumbo that wasn't really good, so we're going to remake Dumbo. And also, Dumbo came out around the time of like Water for Elephants, and also just like the idea of like the circus was like revitalizing, and so it was a good time for that. But I think people were starting to get tired, and the money wasn't there. And also, let's be honest, who just on any given Saturday is like, oh, it's raining outside, let's put on Dumbo and watch Dumbo? Like, only the hardcore spend their money on all the VHS collection. They got every Disney, everything ever made. When it came out the vault, they bought it. They didn't care if it was $68. They bought it. That's the only person who's pulling out Dumbo. So nobody was asking for Dumbo, and I think that's reflected in the fact that it didn't make any money. Okay. So again, don't forget to let me know which of the animated films is your favorite, because I want to see if they've made a live action remake of it already, or if you've picked one, Fox and the Hound, if you pick one that hasn't been adapted yet, because I have a feeling they're coming. Then we got to Aladdin. I personally was on the fence about Aladdin because Robin Williams. Robin Williams, for me, I like Aladdin, I like Jasmine, but the genie was what made that movie work for me. And Jasmine is beautiful. Did Jasmine deserve to be her own princess? Yes. But that being said, like, some of my friends and I, we have sons, and I like the idea of having a male-led Disney animation that kind of centers around like the princes and princesses, because there's not a lot of that in Disney, and so the girls get to be princesses and get to do the princessy things, and there's oftentimes it's just like cars. Like, if Pixar hadn't come along, the boys would have just been like shortchanged. So Aladdin kind of gives you that because it's a male lead, and then the princess is kind of like the co-lead. But I will say I do like Will Smith as the genie. Will Smith is a great actor, and he's one of the people that I think, because he's a megastar, he gets, it's like either it's going to be a project that people are going to support, or it's going to be a project like Wild Wild West and nobody's going to see it and it's going to be trash. And it's not necessarily that he's bad in it per se, because it's the same man in Pursuit of Happiness and Ali, who's a phenomenal actor in those movies. And I think he's phenomenal as the genie. I just think it's not as good as Robin Williams, but it was still good. But again, look at the dollar sign. It was good. Top 10 of the year. Lion King has the dollar sign, but it also got trashed, critically trashed, no positive reviews. One of the lowest Disney remakes on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not necessarily a good metric, but it was trashed. And because of the CGI, a lot of people felt like part of what makes the Lion King special, because Lion King is, again, it's top 5. It's top 5. If I didn't have an affinity for princesses, it would be probably my number 1. And it is the one that I show the most often if I'm having a Disney day at school, because you can get in there. It's a tight hour and a half, banging everything. There's not a bad element. There's not a bad thing. Elton John was in his composing bag with that movie, and everything about it. Jason Weaver as the voice, the singing voice, it was just good. It's just a good movie. So then when you go to do CGI, I think this is where they probably could have said, we're going to do one for one, or we're going to go more serious and kind of do like, go back to the old school days of Disney with like Homeward Bound. Y'all remember those, when Disney used to do movies? Y'all remember when Disney used to do live action with, we're going to Milo and Otis. We're going to follow some animals around and we're all going to cry because the animal's going to be missing its owner and having to get home and all that kind of stuff. I feel like Lion King probably should have went that route, because trying to bring that realism, but then have these animals singing these songs just wasn't going to work. I think they should have made the decision to do that, to go like Homeward Bound, Milo Otis type style. I think that would have been better. But all-star cast, people love the Lion King, so people still went to go see it. It just did not get favorable reviews. And I think also this falls into, you had a lot of people who were doing the voice acting who were not trained voice actors. A lot of people doing voice acting who are not trained actors. So you had Beyonce as Nala. You had, what is that man's name? Donald Glover. I was about to say Childish Gambino, same person, as Simba. And then you lost some of the people who were still alive and probably could have done the voice work for this, because they're still alive. So even though you bring in fresh people, I would have made a balance. I would have mixed. The only person they kept was James Earl Jones as Mufasa. I would have balanced that a little bit better and had like Gary Oldman reprising his role. I would have just balanced that a little bit better. But it was, it was what it was. But they were just didn't have the emotion. Now, notice the symbols are going to change, because this is where we get another animal movie with Lady and the Tramp. Now, raise your hand in the comments if you have seen Lady and the Tramp, the live action. Let me know in the comments. Say me in the comments if you have seen Lady and the Tramp. Because I saw Lady and the Tramp. And Lady and the Tramp came out. It came to streaming, and this was during COVID. I didn't put the COVID symbol there, but this was like during COVID, or like right before, like it was like right in the early days. We really enjoyed Lady and the Tramp. My kids actually enjoyed Lady and the Tramp. I think they enjoyed it more. We watched the animated first, just so they would have kind of like a juxtaposition. They would kind of have a contrast or something, but they actually enjoyed it. I liked the new song by Janelle Monáe. I thought she did good as the character of Roxy, I think. Um, they added some new elements. They gave it kind of like more of like a New Orleans type feel to it. So in that regard, they kind of were able to bring in like the French stuff that's kind of, or the Italian stuff and all that kind of, it was decent. And I also felt like they kind of made the characters, you could kind of, they were emoting a bit better. So I actually felt like the CGI for the animals was better in Lady and the Tramp than it was in The Lion King. So money wise, it went to streaming. It didn't make any money per se. And I don't think anybody, let's be honest, nobody signed up for Disney Plus to watch Lady and the Tramp. What people signed up for Disney Plus for was because it came out. Disney Plus went live during COVID. It was like week 2, and you stuck in the house with them kids. And you were like, what am I about to do with these kids in this house? It's week 2. The teacher's at home. They might be on Zoom, but they got me in this house teaching these kids. I'm about to go ahead and buy this Disney Plus so these kids can have something to do. And so it just so happened that, people may or may not have streamed it. But I think the movie that went first to Disney Plus that was kind of fairly new was that movie. Oh crap, what's the name of that movie? Now I'm gonna forget something. The one about the God, I can't think of the name of it, but it's the one with the boy, he's a wizard and he's going to look for his dad. He's trying to bring his dad back to life. I'll remember it at the end of it, and Tom Holland does the voice. If you remember it and you know the name of it, the first person to comment gets a imaginary chocolate chip cookie for yourself. Take that. There you go. All right. COVID movies. Mulan. Mulan was a COVID movie. It does not have a $sign on here because it very limited release, just enough to where they were hoping to get some nominations for it. So it got very limited release. Didn't matter. It didn't make back its money, but it was fraught with production issues. Mulan is a top 5 or top 10 at minimum Disney animated movie. And you're lying. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. They are lying. I'll Make a Man Out of You, banger. Reflection, banger. Like Mulan is that good movie. Is it historically accurate? No. Is Eddie Murphy being the voice of a dragon in a movie about a Chinese warrior princess anywhere probably appropriate in this conversation that we're now having around like who's doing what voices? Probably not. But this is my take. I wasn't reviewing a whole lot of Disney stuff at the time that this came out. So I appreciate y'all being here because this is like me getting a lot of my like reviews and things out, also talking about this. And we're going to get to Halle Bailey and the Little Mermaid at the end of this, I promise. But my biggest issue was they were trying to go more historically accurate. I applaud that. There were some issues. There's always issues when you're talking about appeasing the Chinese media, historical accuracy. And then they were trying to do more diversity by picking a female director, but they didn't have a lot of Asian people working behind the camera. They had them in front of the camera, and there was nobody that really informed the story. And then they got rid of Mushu. Mushu is one of the best Disney characters of all time. And I did not understand it simply for the fact that you do have Chinese dragons. Like that's a whole thing with like Chinese New Year and the dancing dragon. So to get rid of Mushu and then to have like what is the thing called? A phoenix? Like that didn't even make any sense logically. Simply, and I don't know if maybe there's something, I've tried to research it to find out, maybe there was like a clause that Eddie Murphy had that no one else could ever do Mushu, even though someone else definitely voiced Mushu in the spinoffs of Mulan. I didn't understand, why would you not do Mushu and have him voiced by Ken Young or somebody like that. Like, there are tons of Asian comedians that could have done the voice of Mushu. Heck, they could have got Margaret Cho, made Mushu a female dragon character, and gave her They could have had Awkwafina, and I don't even like Awkwafina. We're going to talk about Awkwafina when we get to Little Mermaid, but there was too many things, and it got panned. It did not get a lot of acclaim. I mean, there were fight sequences that were done well, but it just dragged on too long, and we don't know because the budget wasn't there because of COVID, but there was just too many things working against it. But then Cruella comes along, and it's a top-tier actress, trained actress. Emma Stone is phenomenal. It's not a one-for-one. Mulan was trying to kind of be not one-for-one, but like, this is where my knowledge of math is going to fail me, because I don't know like probability. But Mulan was trying to be 75% animated and 25% new. Cruella is just new with just maybe 10%. We're going to keep the characters. We're going to just give you a sprinkling. But it's doing the Maleficent thing. It's them learning what worked for them back, when I said it over here, in this phase right here, what worked for them or started to work for them was doing the adaptations that were not the same, were not one for one, and it worked, right? It did well. It did make back its budget, and for it being a COVID film that very shortly after went to streaming, that was good. So, and Emma Stone got nominated for stuff. So that was a win. Pinocchio. Pinocchio just has so many things that just were working against it. Guillermo del Toro's version of Pinocchio was going to hit Netflix, and it was new and different and superior in that form of filmmaking. This version of Pinocchio, Robert Zemeckis. I don't know if you guys know who Robert Zemeckis is. Robert Zemeckis is a director. He's the director of Forrest Gump. He's also the director of The Polar Express. Has a huge history working with Tom Hanks. So, of course, you get Tom Hanks as Geppetto. And it seems like this should be a match made in heaven because they break box offices together. But I think this is an example of taking a property that people don't love enough. There are not enough people to love Pinocchio to quantify making Pinocchio. And so it goes to streaming, but it just got Razzied. It got Razzied. And that's, if you know the Razzies, that's like the opposite of the Academy Awards. So not good. I think Pinocchio's okay, but again, Pinocchio is really kind of sketchy. And to take Pinocchio into this day and age with Disney still being the platform that it is, like, and not wanting to touch certain subjects, and you have like a lot of things that are kind of like inappropriate. And again, probably trying to do that thing with Dumbo where they're like riding the ship and bringing things into the more modern day. And it just did not work at all. And so here we are, we're caught up. Now, there's a couple of movies that I did not leave or did not talk about. Mostly of them were sequels to earlier live action remakes. Again, so if it's a sequel, there's no point in really us talking about it because it really was probably deviating very significantly from the animated origins. But the most recent, this past month, Peter and Wendy hit streaming, and The Little Mermaid is, of course, premiering Thursday night, Friday. And so this is where we're going to kind of like begin to really get into the meat and potatoes of this discussion. A lot of people saw the trailer for Peter Pan and Wendy, and it got the same kind of backlash if you're not familiar with the Little Mermaid, because they casted Yara Shahidi, who is a mixed race, Black and Middle Eastern. Not 100% certain about the ethnicity of her father, but I believe he's Middle Eastern, or Middle Eastern descent at least, ancestry. Well, not ancestry, but ethnicity. And so she considers herself to be a black actress, so she would call herself a black actress. And they casted her as Tinkerbell, and people lost their minds, right? You can't take Tinkerbell. She's blonde and blue-eyed and all of this kind of stuff, and remake her and make her black, and she doesn't have blonde hair and all these kinds of things. And then kind of died down, and then people saw the trailer, and they're like, whoa, who is this non-blonde, brownish looking boy playing Peter Pan? And why is there so much focus on this girl? What happened to just doing Peter Pan? Why is it Peter Pan and Wendy? This is super woke, da 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 da. I watched Peter Pan and Wendy when it came out with my kids. My kids have seen Peter Pan. They are in the age demographic of Disney. And I'm not one of those people who will say all the time, oh, Disney's for kids, we don't need to judge it. No, I think we can judge Disney, but I think we can also say who the audience is. For certain movies, certain projects might exclude adults. And we can also say it's okay to do some stuff that's new. In my opinion, having read J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan and having seen the animated, and also Peter Pan has a ton of live adaptations from other properties, from other studios. Hook. There was the Danny Kaye live action version where she's on hooks and it's a woman playing Peter Pan. I mean, come on, people. People really lost their minds. But having watched this, my kids thoroughly enjoyed it. It feels like an adventure. People were complaining about the saturation and the CGI and the way that it looks and why does it look so drab. This is the trend with fantasy films, and it's my opinion that they were really going fantasy film market. So those of you who like Chronicles of Narnia and the look and aesthetic of Chronicles of Narnia with the live adaptation, Lord of the Rings, that's what Peter Pan and Wendy was doing. That's what this over here was doing. It was very much giving that feel. It's a British story. It felt very British in its making. And so it was not a 1-for-1 of the animated. And it was mostly them adding elements from the original story that had been left out or tweaking it to modernize it a little bit. But it was enjoyable. I thought that some of the casting decisions could have been a bit better. I wouldn't have casted Jude Law as Hook, but the backstory that they give Hook was really, really good. The backstory that they give Peter was really, really good. And I thought that the actors could have been a bit better, but I actually would not change the script or even the cinematography that much. I would have made some different choices with the actors, just not based off of ethnicity or anything, just based off of their ability to perform and the chemistry between them. But it was not a bad movie at all. And so we got to switch this up a little bit because we've been talking about what's your favorite Disney animated film. But now that we are getting to the last of the live actions that is slated for right now, are you planning to see the live action Little Mermaid? Please comment, let me know in the chat or in the comments if you're planning to see the live action Little Mermaid. I am seeing it, and I am forcing my children to see it, even though my youngest son was like, I don't want to see it. It's a girly movie. No, we're going to see it. I'm so utterly excited. If you have not seen any of the trailers for The Little Mermaid, I wish I would have downloaded one so I could play the clip for you right now. Halle, even as soon as they casted The Little Mermaid, as soon as they said, we're going to do The Little Mermaid, before they even said Halle, I was aware of Chloe and Halle as a singing duo, and I was like, they ought to get Halle. if you look at Ariel, you think about what Ariel looks like as an animation. Halle legit just looks like a chocolate dipped version of Ariel. I'm sorry. She does. Her face, she looks like she is a Disney princess. I was talking to my friend and I was saying, there's just some people, like, it makes you believe in like time travel, because there's some people who just look so much like characters. Like for me, I firmly believe Stan Lee went into the future, saw Patrick Stewart, went back into the past and said, I'm going to make Professor Xavier and I'm going to model him after this dude named Patrick Stewart, because there could no one else could have been Professor X. I'm so sorry. He was the perfect person. I almost feel like it's the same thing with Halle. Like, I'm sorry. Like, her voice was crafted for this. Now, what's right now, the reviews are really good. I'm saying that for right now because I thoroughly think we should anticipate this being megally hate bombed in like Rotten Tomatoes and wherever you might find your film reviews, like common film reviews. I think it's going to get hate bombed. So I don't think we should anticipate it keeping the critical reviews that it has right now. I think we should anticipate that kind of going south, or at least like there being a big difference between the film critics and the audience score. I think it's going to be shifted because I think people are going to hate bomb it. And I think we just have to be prepared for that. But having not seen it, but having heard enough to where I don't want to be completely spoiled, I knew that they were probably going to do some things new. I think this is going to be much closer to Cinderella, where we get the story, we get the sequences, all of those things that are key in the original are there. The runtime is about 35 minutes longer than the original because that's where they're adding stuff. And I think that's the recipe that, from just looking at everything we've just looked at, that is the recipe that Disney has to keep doing. People online are going to keep saying that they're getting Disney fatigue, or that they have Marvel fatigue, superhero fatigue. But the reality is people are still going out in droves to see a lot of these projects when they're good. Do some of them get unfairly dumped on? Yes. But I think Little Mermaid's I think it's going to be a box office smash. The press run right now is really strong. And I think I just think that they got the recipe right. Now, are there going to be some problems? Yes. I think some of the CGI concerns are valid. I think Aquafina Escuttle was a decision, was a choice that was made. Melissa McCarthy, from what I understand, people are like, she killed it as Ursula. I would have liked Queen Latifah, but I'm not going to knock Melissa McCarthy because she's a great actress. And so far in the clips, she looks like she's strong. So I think that what we're going to see is hopefully what we got to just realize right now with this discussion is Disney is not going to stop making these live adaptations, and we just need to deal with it. We need to understand that Disney is a company that is in the business of also being the largest amusement park in the world. And they have established that their amusement parks are built up around their characters and their properties for their characters. And so they've got to keep ownership of those characters and keep those characters revitalized in the public eye so people continue to go to the parks. So they're going to keep making the remakes. And hopefully they just continue with this recipe of, we're going to do it. And if we're going to change stuff, which I am okay with them changing certain aspects of the characters, as long as it's logical and it makes sense. It makes sense. And if you're mad about Ariel being brown, let me just say this. When you saw The Little Mermaid and you heard Sam Wright doing the voice of Sebastian, a Caribbean, big-lipped crab, and you didn't have a problem with it being voiced by a Black man or its features being drawn to resemble that of a Black man, and he is doing a Caribbean accent, even though he's not Caribbean, but he was doing a Caribbean accent, and you weren't bothered by that, then them taking that environment and relocating their main star to making her Caribbean, because the first girl who walked in to audition for the singing of Ariel blew them away. You're going to have to get over that. It doesn't mean it's going to happen with every adaptation. They're not going to try to make everything super woke. Some of it will just be the same, but just new. But I just think we got to get used to this. I think Ariel is going to kill it. I think it's going to be so good. So now we got to get to the voice of the crab wasn't black. He was black, but people didn't get upset by that. People weren't mad that Sebastian was black, right? But everyone else in the animation was white. There were no black mermaids at all until the Little Mermaid animated series. Again, like Janice said, why do I know these things? That's when we get our first black mermaid. So you had a black sounding crab, a black crab for all intents and purposes, and everyone else was white. So I just think it's disingenuous when people get online and get mad about Ariel now being black when they're just reversing the order a little bit, hey. And the crab was Caribbean. Now it's going to be set kind of in the Caribbean. And now in the Caribbean, there are people of all shades. So, hey, I think more power to them. I think I'm going to make my spouse and my kids all go with me to see The Little Mermaid. And I will definitely be bringing a review of it once I've seen it. I opted not to review it and see it early because I really want to have that experience with my whole family. So I didn't want to go see an early screener because I wanted that experience with my family. But I will review it for the channel, even if it doesn't get a lot of views, because everyone has already seen the reviews of it already. But it's okay. It's okay. It's my experience. So that wraps up our discussion of the Disney live action movies and The Little Mermaid. But let me know in the comments what your favorite of the Disney live action remakes are. There's a couple I left off the list, but just kind of to scroll through. We've got Peter Pan and Wendy. We've got Pinocchio, Cruella, Mulan, Lady and the Tramp, The Lion King, Aladdin. We've got Dumbo, Beauty and the Beast, The Jungle Book, Cinderella, Maleficent, Sorcerer, Apprentice, which nobody saw, Alice in Wonderland, 101 Dalmatians, and the 94 Jungle Book. Let me know which one is your favorite Disney live action animation, or what is your favorite Disney live action remake? Let me know in the comments, and maybe later on we'll get to do a watch party where we watch it together. We'll see. I'm probably going to go live later on this week to talk about Sam Levinson, and also some other movie news that's coming out. And perhaps a lot of people have been expressing interest in the Color Purple musical that is coming out Christmas Day. So we might talk about that as well. Aladdin was really good. I thought they did a really good job with the live action of Aladdin. I truly do. I truly do think that was one of the good ones. So let me know in the comments what your favorite Disney live action remake is. And of course, don't forget to talk about what your favorite Disney animated film is of all time. And I will see you guys later. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a supportive group. And I'll see you later. Toodles.